Hello, my name is Jacob Avila. I have with me the wonderful Jason Bowman. And we're going to do our first step. I really feel like this is the basic building block for most of what we do when we're doing DIY ultrasound simulators. And what are we working with today, Jason?
We're working this clear ballistics gel here. We don't make any money off of this company, but it's what we've used. It seems to work for us. So if you find something else better, let us know. But this is what we use.
Sweet. So usually we'll do is it's a beautiful block. There's a bunch of different ways that you can buy this. I like buying it this way in the cube, but you can buy little shavings, you can buy larger cubes, you can buy there's a bunch of different iterations of it. So what we usually do is, we've actually already done it. So pretend it's attached. We break off a piece and pull off the pieces individually. Now we're going to save this one because we've already kind of done this in the past. I want to show you what we do with a crock pot, which are ingredients that we'll need. Now when you're done with it, you're going to end up with a product that looks like this. Now there are different methods you can use, and I've actually gone through a lot of different iterations. I know Jason has, but this is the method that actually I think works the best.
This is what happens after you've used them several times, because these can be melted down and reused, which is one of the nice features of using ballistics gel. The only downside to it is it will eventually start to yellow like this. Doesn't change how well it works though. You can use this quite a few times. So this is a used piece we have, and I'll show you how to reuse it in the crock pot. So it's pretty simple. All we'll have to do is just break it apart into pieces.
You want to mention why you don't just put the whole thing in there as a whole?
Yeah, if you throw this thing in there by itself, the issue you'll have is it can burn on one side, and also it'll just take forever for it to actually start to melt. So, two good reasons you just break this thing up. There's a lot of different molds that we can use. For the most part, it's pans. We use.
So these are like the aluminum pans, right? Get them at Walmart, dollar store, anywhere.
Wherever. These are just cheap pans. And you can get them any shape, size you want, whatever for your purpose that you're trying to do. So you can have a little tiny one like this if you want something nice and portable. You can get a big one with nice big holes in it. You could use this for, like, you know, femoral line kind of simulation, something like that. You can get them with holes that go sideways, so you can use them a whole lot, because one of the problems you have with this is if you stick it a whole lot, it'll leave tracks. So that's why we have to remelt them every now and then. So if you get a whole bunch of holes, something like this, then you've got a lot of training out of one block.
Yeah, this is like a peripheral IV one because it's kind of on the shallow side. We basically take a drill and we'll drill into these things, the holes. Now you want the holes, these little guys right here, you want them to be a little bit smaller for the way that I do it. We're going to talk about a slightly different technique that we use. You want the holes to be a little bit smaller than the silicone tubing that you're going to need. The reason why I like that I'll show you in a bit, but basically it makes it so that the ballistic shell, as you're melting it, doesn't leak out of the holes around this tubing here.
This is what it looks like when you need to drill the holes into the pan itself. Just be very careful, use eye protection, make sure that you have everything nice and braced so that you don't injure yourself. After you get those holes in, you can definitely use just a manual sander, a manual kind of filing tool, but I use this Dremel tool to help make this a little bit faster so that you can actually get all these sharp edges off of the holes that you just drilled. If you don't do this, these are going to just destroy, just slice all the way through that silicone tubing, and then it won't work.
Now usually when I'm getting the tubing, I have used latex tubing in the past, but the latex tubing, its melting point's a little bit too low. Silicone is very heat resistant, so I just use a silicone tubing, and I like to get like a big pack like this, and then cut them to small pieces like this. Now we're going to use this one right here, and what I want to make sure that this is a little bit longer than the pan. I want it to actually stick out a little bit on each end.
This is kind of what happens if you end up using the latex tubing. Yeah, it doesn't like the heat that well.
No,
so
that was ugly. I don't like that.
It's a problem. Can't use a penrose drain for this.
So what you want to do, it's a little bit tricky, but you want to kind of pinch the end off here and put them right inside here. It takes a little bit of effort, but you want it to be kind of on the tight side right there. probably the hardest part of this whole thing. There we go. You see that it's nice and snug in there. Nothing's going to leak out of this part right here. So here. Alright, and you want to put it kind of nice and taut there. Same thing on the other side here. And there you go. So now you have your mold ready to go.
So after you get your tin ready to go ahead and break up the little pieces of ballistic shell. I just usually use my hand and throw them in the crock pot, turn the crock pot on, and get it melted. I check on it periodically. This is not quite done. You want it to have a very liquidy consistency. When they're ready, just go ahead and pour them onto the tins. Now the tins, I already have them on the skillet. The reason that I have them on the skillet with the skillet on is I want all the bubbles to come out. When you do this pouring, you'll create bubbles, and the skillet will actually help continue to heat it and make the bubbles go ahead and get out of solution. You want it to look like this, no bubbles visible. Another option besides using the skillet and the crock pot is you can just place the unmelted cubes in the pan in desktop oven. I would not do this in your oven at home because it will just stink up the place. Now, the last step is taking this beautiful IB simulator that you've created out of the pan. It can be a little tricky, but you get all the edges out first, like you see here, and be very careful to not rip the IB simulator that you've just spent all this time creating. So be very gentle. Once you get all the edges out, go ahead and sneak your fingers in there like you see here. And what I do is I go ahead and try and push the tubes through the holes. So make sure that you're not putting tension through the ballistic shell, because then it might actually rip and then you kind of messed up your IB simulator. You don't want any rips on this at all. So do that to both ends. And then once you get it out, the last step is to remove the tubes. The way that I remove this is I do a little twist on the tubes, and once that unsticks it from the ballistic shell, I just slide it right out. It comes out without any issues usually. This is the last step. So I get these little rubber stoppers and I stick them in one side of the IB simulator. And then I go ahead and put water on the open side. Now, when you drip water in here, I go ahead and fill it up till it's just like overflowing, like over the brim. The reason why I fill it up this way is when you put the other side, the other stopper in, it's going to make sure that all the air gets pushed out. So you don't want any kind of air column in here. You want the least amount of air possible inside the cylinder you've just made that simulates the vein. You can leave the latex in there if you want, but I found that doing it this way much more feels like an actual vein. And here is the final product. You can see here that the echogenicity of the needle is good. The echogenicity of the ballistics gel is good as well. It looks pretty close to some of the commercial, more expensive vascular access simulators out there.
Turn it to long axis just to confirm it. Oh, not quite in, so we'll go a little bit further. There we go.
I hope you guys like this video. Jason and I are planning on doing a lot more of these in the future and include things apart from just vascular access. So we're talking pericardiocentesis model, nerve blocks, paracentesis model, thoracentesis model, basically all DIY stuff. So be on the lookout for it, and when it comes out, check it out and let us know what you think.